I've got with me today a block and a strap as well. I'm going to work a little bit on shoulders and hips all together. I'm going to start seated posture. So I have the block and the strap handy to you. And we're going to come straight into Sukhasana. I'm going to turn the block this way today. Usually face head on a little bit, but we're going to move straight into this. So stretching those legs out, which haven't moved for a week, and see how we get on. So Sukhasana, bringing the heels into the groin rather than crossing the legs if possible. So you can get the shins down on the floor and just widen your foundation for sitting. Make it easier for yourself. Roll the shoulders back and get a nice long spine. You sort of wriggle out that neck a little bit. And then you choose whether you want to kind of embrace drawing some energy into your body with palms up, or whether you want to sort of allow yourself to discharge a little bit. If you've had a busy week already, palms down. And quieting the breath. Just looking at the quality of that breath. How easy is it to breathe in smoothly? So to untangle the legs, and we'll come straight into a little twist, seated twist. So I'm going to take the left foot underneath, cross the right leg over, flat foot to the floor if possible, knee high, to the pelvis forwards. Allow yourself to draw the left arm through between your chest and your knee, and then hook the elbow and palm to face to the outside. Stretch those fingertips out. Just use the hand behind the hip rather than the back. And if it feels good in the neck and the shoulder, you can look over that rear shoulder, but otherwise chin and chest can just follow. Now, trying to let the bottom leg relax down and be conscious that you're sitting on both sitting bones. And with a bit of luck, as you breathe in, you'll feel the soft spine growing. Exhale, spine rotating. And we'll release from there. And we'll just mirror that to the second side. So just easing in, taking it easy with those joints, as we should always really in yoga practice. Drawing the tummy muscles in a little bit to help with that connection of drawing the pelvis upwards. Starting from the base, then the spine can follow easily. from there as well. We'll move from here up onto all fours. So coming into cat-cow position. Spreading the fingers out, make sure those wrists are underneath the shoulders, knees are underneath the hips, bootlaces down. We'll begin. Just drawing the chest forwards and tilting the pelvis the opposite way as we draw the belly in towards the spine and lift the spine towards the sky. Spreading the shoulders out wide. You feel the shoulder blades separate a little. Inhale, coming forwards. Just rolling the shoulder blades back. Tilting the pelvis gently to the sky. Press into the shins and the hands this time. And then find your own breath. So breath-wise, it can be faster or slower than me. As long as it feels smooth. You can even breathe in and out the opposite way around entirely. Some people prefer. The important thing is to remember to actually breathe. Sounds obvious. But sometimes we can get a little bit fixated on the movement pattern and forget about the breath. And we want to try and draw the two together. So focusing at least 50-50 breath and movement. And then I'm going to start to barrel roll that a little bit. So I'm going to move it out sideways, roll it around, and start to notice how the spine feels with the lateral movements. Now I'm beginning this with keeping the arms fairly straight, letting the shoulders move around a little bit, sockets, as well as the hip joints. And I'm going to take it in both directions. I'll wiggle that out to the opposite side. And come back into the center. Allow myself to take the knees wide, sit onto the heels. I'm going to turn the palms so the fingers are pointing outwards, getting cat's paws, and just allow myself to maraud a little bit from side to side. So I'm feeling the stretch through the ligaments and tendons in the wrists and into the hands. And then I'll just take a little temporary stretch with the fingers towards me, thumbs out. Just so I get a feeling of the forearms. I'll have a nice opening. I'm not going to stay there too long. I can take one more breath and then press down into the shins to lift back up. And just to move the fingers back into the front of the mat, bring the knees back under. I'm going to take thread the needle here. So I'm going to lift the right arm up towards the sky and open the chest, and then follow that through. And I'm going to lay the shoulder and ear down onto the floor, hopefully on the center line. And then press the shins into the floor a little bit as I walk my left hand forwards. And then on the fingertips, try to keep the arms straight. Let's see if I can walk the fingertips over towards the right side of the mat. And think about rotating my chest more towards the sky. So some of that's going to come from me walking the hand over. And some of it's from a deliberate intention of spiraling my rotated spine around up towards the sky with my chest. Now, obviously you want to be able to breathe easily here. And you do want to press down into that bottom shoulder a little bit just to take some of the weight out of the neck. And then we'll walk fingers gently back. Press the hand into the floor, lift ourselves back up. A moment here just to let the spine untangle itself. And then we'll take the left arm up. Nice big stretch, opening breath. Fold it through. And just trying to find the shoulder and ear on the center line. Pressing down a little bit through the shoulder and into the shins. Walking the right arm straight forwards. Once it's fully extended, you can walk it over gently towards the left side this time. Rotate round. You might find it easier to rotate one way than you do the other. Ribcage isn't symmetric, so therefore it can feel a little bit different from side to side. Just trying to guide that chest around. And bring the hand back in front of the face. Press down. Lift ourselves up. We'll take the knees wide and let ourselves sink into child's pose. Now, I'm going to take the hands forwards to start with and allow the forehead to come down to the ground. So I'm going to get low down first. Then I'm going to walk my hands towards the center line so I can turn the palms together. Now I'm wrapping my arms very much around my ears. Pushing the elbows down to the ground, bending the elbows and bring the hands into the nape of the neck. And then try and crawl my elbows further forwards. So I start to feel the stretch in the back of the triceps and through the armpit, a little down the sides of the body as well. Release the hands to the ground. Take the hands wide again, and then just walk them back a little bit so you can lift up. Allow ourselves to come into Sphinx pose. So I'm going to place my elbows roughly shoulder distance apart, just interlace the hands lightly. Lift up so that my shoulders are now over my elbows. Walk the feet back, let the knees come to the floor and lower the hips down. Drawing the chest forwards, rolling the shoulders out wide. Forearms pressing down. So sometimes I take Sphinx pose with the forearms parallel. Sometimes I take them with this sort of prayer position, which I'm following this morning. No real reason other than just mixing it up a little bit. Lengthen the legs away, pressing the thighs gently to the floor, bootlaces down, heels roll out. Belly's drawn in tight. And then again, just coming down to the grounding, letting the hands come down to the bottom of the ribs, roll the shoulders back, peel away from the floor, draw the knees in. As you do, bring the knees together, take the feet wide, find your block, stick it underneath your bottom, bring your strap a little closer to you as well. We're sitting up tall, making sure the toes are pointing backwards. We're coming to a surface stretch to start with for those shoulders. So take the arms out wide. It's going to bring the right arm across and lock it off with the left. The idea is to try and draw the shoulder blade around a little bit. So the shoulder blade moves away from the spine, not rotating the chest. It's a little bit of movement there, obviously by just drawing the chest through. And I want to try and keep the shoulder low rather than lifting it into the ear. So if you are tight, that might happen. And release that out. Let the arms out again. Or the opposite way. There is a little bit of muscular force being used to draw this around. It's not a completely passive stretch where you just sort of sit there and just breathe and don't do anything. I'm actually working here. It's hard for you to see that, and obviously hard to describe how much weight and effort is going into that, but it's definitely turned on. There's a few pounds of effort there holding it. So making sure that we're sitting up tall, keeping the belly drawn in a little bit as well for balance. Take a little breath from there and then that release and just sink down. You roll the shoulders round, big circles. Slow, inhaling up, exhaling down, following the breath again. And we'll take it in the opposite direction as well. The shoulders settle for a moment. And then you take the hands out in front, so the palms are facing out. Just slowly open the arms out. Take them behind. Bring the hands in. See if I get the fingertips to meet. Ease the palms together. Try to take the hands comfortably towards my shoulder blades. Now, I don't need to come super high. Once I'm in position, I'm going to start to try and draw the elbows towards the back of the mat, whilst keeping the palms just gently pressing in. And then release. So take the hands and interlace the fingers above the head. Can make a little halo above our head, rolling around. And you get a little bit of movement into the ribs, but also into the shoulders. But strangely enough, when we were doing the shoulder strokes, my shoulders felt pretty fluid. You know, they were running smoothly and quietly. But when I've done that, this pose, the halo pose, you can hear a lot of muscles sort of clicking over each other and grinding a little bit. We're in both ways. And it just shows you that the muscles, you know, they're very complex in the shoulders. They move in lots of different directions. There's muscles that assist muscles as well. Some of them might be tight in some directions. So we try to give it a good all-around move through here. And then releasing back down. And then we're going to take the strap. So now we've warmed them up sufficiently. I'm going to take the buckle into one hand, into my left hand, and just strap that around a couple of times. So I know where it is, and it's not going to bounce around my head, which is always handy. We come into cow face arms. I'm going to take the left arm up and allow the strap to come behind me. And then taking the hand forwards for a moment, thumb down on the right side, and just slowly move that around, keeping it fairly low. Take it as far back as I can, then bend the elbow, and so I have to find the strap. Now I'm going to start to feed the top arm down towards the nape of the neck as I bring my hands close together. Now sometimes I can get my fingers to lock, and sometimes I need the strap to walk in. You choose whatever method works for you. Don't worry about getting the fingers to lock if they don't. On one side, I can do this relatively well. On the other side, I've never been able to do it in 20 years of yoga. Not a big issue. And then we'll release from there as well. And untangle the arms. We're just going to move the belt over to the other side so we keep ourselves nice and safe. Last thing you want is a buckle slapping you in the eye when you're doing yoga. It does not help. It's the strap behind. Left hand comes out, turn the palms, so the thumbs down, palm out. And swoop it around gently, nice and slow. Take your time. You also have to draw that shoulder and that arm back as far as you can before you bend into the elbow. Find the strap, then guide the two hands together, using the strap as a bit of a reference, and see where you get to. Sort of open the elbows out a little bit. So one thing that definitely tells us that you're trying a little bit too hard is if your head is jammed down towards the ground. You want to be able to hold the neck up easily. So that gives you a little bit more guidance as to where the shoulders should be. And then the arms need to be placed. A few more breaths here. And release out of that. So move the strap up towards the front of the mat. And allow ourselves to slowly unpeel the legs, which might have gone to sleep a little bit. Move the block out to the side, up onto all fours, and then slowly and carefully allow yourself to stretch one leg out at a time, just to wait for the blood flow to come back into the knees. Maybe just stretch out the ankle a little bit as well, a little bit of toing and froing. Both sides, obviously. Wait for that to come back to life. And hopefully yours has as well. I'm going to move slowly and carefully into down dog. So just lifting up. Feet are about hip distance apart. Hands are very flat to the ground, or the fingers more or less pointing forward, slightly out, which in my case. Armpits are rolling down. Lifting the belly high. Hips back. And the chest. Pinch your left, get a little closer to the ground as you lift your hips high. And there's a good distance between my heels and the floor. If you want to stretch out your little down dog a bit more, you can do. I'm staying relatively still today. That's what my body needs. Okay, we'll pull out the last breath and let ourselves come into a plank. Now I'm going to drop the left knee down to the floor, spin the foot out to the side as a pivot on the knee, and bring the left hand in line with the left knee. Turn the right heel flat to the floor, press the hips over towards the right, and open myself up to a baby side plank. Now I'm actually pressing down through the hand and through the rear foot and lifting the fingers high. So I'm taking the weight out of that bent knee underneath me. I'm not really balancing on it. It's there for a little bit of assistance, but it's not the main component. Also keeping the head in line with the rest of the spine, rather than letting it drop down to the floor. Trying to lengthen out from the pelvis all the time. And take a last breath and bring the hand back down to the floor. And then just adjust that to the opposite side. So I spin the foot out, bring the hand in, and back the left leg, drop foot to the floor, sole down. Press the hips over towards the left side as you lift up. Check your wrist as best you can is underneath your shoulder. Press into the ground to lift high. Bring that down to the ground again. Still on all fours. Tuck the toes of the right foot underneath and slide that foot out to the back of the mat. So press down through the left shin. Allow yourself to slide the right foot out to the side, more or less 90 degrees. Place the foot to the floor. Take a little breath. Walk the fingers in. Lift up, drawing the belly in. Bring one hand, right hand onto the right hip. Left hand towards the sky. Now once the arm reaches the ear, extend out towards the right side a little bit as well. I'll lift up through the spine and try and lengthen as far as I can. Still pressing down a little into this right foot. And bring the hands back down to the floor. I'm going to press down through the shin again. Allow myself to lift the foot off the ground. Swing back slowly till the hips are square to the ground. And bend the knee, bring that back down. You do the same with the opposite side. So left leg shoots back, runs out to the side. Find my position. I'm going to make sure that the knee that you are kneeling on is a vertical line through the thigh rather than an angle there. If you've taken the foot out too far, you've probably overextended yourself a little bit. I'm going to bring the arm up against the ear and then lengthen out. Triangular ear and arm connection. Avoid rolling the chest around towards the front, to the side of the mat. I'm going to keep it very much pointing forwards. And don't worry if you feel like you got deeper on one side than the other. It will be the reality of life. And bring everything back. Hands and knees. Take a little breath. Press down through the shin to lift the foot about the height of the hip. Keep the arms pressing down strong so we don't collapse into the elbows. Swing the foot back. Bring the knee to the ground. Take a little breath. Allow yourself to just lift the right knee slightly off the floor and flex the foot, so toes towards knees. And you're going to slowly take the knee out to the side as high as you can. At the same time, I want you to press down with every sort of muscle fiber you can recruit into the hands and push away from the floor and into that shin as well. Remember to breathe. And then we'll bring that back down. Ooh, that's a biggie. Nice breath in, needed to recover. And then out to the opposite side. Press down through the shin, press down through the arms. The foot is flexed a little bit. The knee goes out as high as you can. Hold it and keep lifting it. Going to feel those outer hip muscles being recruited. My arms are shaking. My belly's shaking. I've probably got bits I don't even know the names of that are shaking at the moment. Okay, one more breath. And let that knee come down to the ground as well. Whew. You come down onto the floor, all fours to the ground. and allow myself to have my feet together, toes pointing away, boot laces down. I'm going to take the hands out in front and just allow myself to place, in this case, I'm going to go left on top of right. Head down to the ground. Allow myself to walk the fingers as far as I comfortably can forwards, so their arms are very extended. Let's take a few breaths here. You can notice the different sense of feeling through your ribs. I'm going to walk the hands and my body over towards the right side. So I'm coming into a lateral side bend. You can turn the head to the right as well if you wish. Nice big breath in, filling the lungs, stretching those ribs out. You'll definitely be much more aware of your diaphragm moving as well. And take one more breath here. And use the exhale to start to walk back to the center. And then I'm going to change the hands over. Walk the fingers away again as far as I can, just in case it came back to me a little bit. And then walk across to the final side. It's only a comfortable distance. You don't have to make it extremes, whatever feels comfortable in your spine. So there's no real sort of angle or number of degrees you need to move to, just as long as you're happy. Again, might become quite apparent the difference in how you're able to breathe to one side of your body and the other. And we'll come back into the center. Walking the hands in easily. Take a little breath. Allow ourselves to lift up just for a moment so that I can move my block out of the way. I'm going to bring the hands more in line with my shoulders. The feet are together. And I'm going to take my left arm out to the side of me, 90 degrees to my body, palm flat to the floor. Press into the right hand, roll onto my left side of my body. It does require you to walk your left fingers out a little bit. Now, if that doesn't feel comfortable in your neck, then you can bring that block, which was to the front of the mat, just underneath your head. Once you're happy in your position, you want to try and stack your hips and your chest 90 degrees to the ground. So to help us with our awareness of our hips, we'll squeeze the thighs together and lift the legs just a little off the ground, maybe an inch or two. Lengthen them out. You can spread the toes as well, keep the thighs squeezing. The idea is to get to the feeling where you're pivoting on that hip bone, sort of sitting into the flesh of the muscles. And you'll find a kind of a tricky point for yourself. Just be careful that the legs don't float forwards. Keep them running down the center line of the mat. So you have to sort of be positionally aware of where you are without looking. And a nice stretch for the shoulders. And just working those abs a little bit and the inner thighs, whilst making us think about where we are. And a little bit on the breath. And if you come gently back down to the floor, roll the chest to the ground, and whilst I'm doing that, I'm wiggling the fingers out on the left until it feels like the shoulder has come back to life. And then I'll bring that left hand in, walk the right arm out, take a little breath, roll onto the side. Find the balance point. Squeeze the thighs together, lift the legs just a little, spread out the toes. Eyes and the head are facing directly to the side of the mat. Again, just trying to find a balance point where I think my hips are stacked 90 degrees to the ground. For most of us, kind of sit into the glutes when we come into this twist. If we've got that rotational availability in our spine, we kind of sit on the back of the glute, which means that the hips are sort of 70 degrees, not 90 degrees to the floor. Holding it forwards a little bit without falling over, or without rolling back. And I am pressing into the hand that's in front of my face as well. Try and roll the chest towards the long side of the mat as well. That shoulder is drawing back a little bit. Tends to open up a little bit more as the pose time progresses. And then we'll let those legs come gently back down to the ground again, wiggling out the fingers, waiting for the shoulder to feel like it's come back to life. And then I can take the hands forward. Now I'm going to take them either side of the block that's out in front of me and just lift the chest up enough so my bottom rib is still on the ground, but my chest is lifted and I've got a bit of space. I'm going to take my left hand and then take that under the right armpit and out to the side 90 degrees to the body, and just adjust my shoulder back away from my ear a little bit. Walk the right hand over the block and all the way around to the left side of the mat. So now the hands are 180 degrees apart. The arms are as straight as I can. The shoulders are as far down away from my ears as I possibly can allow them. And then I'm just going to see if I can sit and breathe. Now, I do tend to sort of find that I can stick my chin into the bicep of that top arm. And that gives me a little bit of space for my throat so I can still swallow and breathe easily. I'm going to feel a big sense of separation underneath the shoulder blades if you've not done this pose before. Press down through the thighs, heels away, draw the belly in, a little bit of hyperextension to lift the chest more away from the ground and take some of the weight off of the arms as I bring them back out either side of the block. And then the right arm goes out to the side. And the left arm runs over the top of the block and out to the edges. Double trouble. And then again, just draw the belly in, press the thighs down, hyperextension. Allows us to walk the arms back out. Now bring the elbows back underneath again. That allows us to interlace the fingers. And let's draw the shoulders over the elbows. Allow myself to lift the hips. The knees are still on the ground. Tuck the toes underneath, and then lift the knees off the floor. So I've come into elbow plank. I'm going to take a little breath from here, and in elbow plank, turn the feet over towards the left side, and allow myself to come into elbow plank, side plank. Didn't see that coming. I'm attempting to lift the hips. I got 1 foot flat to the floor. I'm on the edge of 1 foot as well. And trying to press in down into the ground and press my forearm into the floor. I've even clenched my fist to help a little bit with that. I'm going to come back into my elbow position with the hands together. Roll the feet over to the other side. Allow myself to open up. Whew. Second side. Now we'll come back into the elbow plank. Knees come to the floor. Whew. Spin the feet out to the side and take them to the front of the mat. Going to come onto the back now. So I'm going to use the block as well. Let's put it over the other side. And we start off with the knees high, feet close in towards the bottom. Hands behind. Let's roll the spine gently down towards the floor. Taking the arms out wide, palms up in line with the chest. Let those legs roll over towards the right. And just allow them to reach down to the floor. I'm going to try and squeeze the top thigh into the bottom thigh. And also flex the feet. And then slowly extend the soles of the feet out to the side of the mat. The legs naturally straighten out. Now, one leg is going to be slightly further ahead than the other. The hips aren't completely stacked on top of each other, but I'm keeping the shoulders on the ground. Lengthening out through the legs. As I said before, a little squeezy of the thighs together, just a fraction. Now, keeping the feet flexed and the knees slightly squeezing together, I'm going to bend the knees and bring the heels in towards the buttocks, and then lift the legs back up, feet to the floor, and then we'll take it over to the second side. Allow that bottom leg to get as low as it can. Then start to squeeze the top side down. Flex the feet. Gradually extend the legs out. The last time I did this, I managed to burn my foot on the radiator and pretty much in the same place again. Will I ever learn? And the feet are flexed, squeezing the thighs together lightly. Slowly draw the knees, sorry, the heels in, and then roll the knees back up. So I'm going to take my block and put that between my thighs. Now I want to have my heels the same distance apart as I think my knees are. So when I look at them, it kind of gives me a better impression of where my feet will be, need to be. We also want the toes to slightly turn in again. Now bring hands alongside the body. I'm going to come into bridge pose, just rolling the shoulders underneath, drawing the belly down, tucking the tailbone away, letting the hips lift towards the sky. Doesn't have to be the biggest bridge in the world. Now press down low through those arms and the back of those triceps. Now draw the knees towards the front of the mat. So I can feel the thighs lifting away from me. Breathe. Always keep your eyes and your head facing the ceiling rather than looking around in bridge pose. You want to protect your neck and the nerves in the neck particularly. Really slightly drawn in. And more of a chesty breath. Those arms are still working down. That can last a minute. And we'll slowly curl the spine back down to the floor. I'm going to take the block and put that behind the back of my head. Allow myself to wiggle the feet into the center line and very close in towards my bottom. I want the spine to be very flat, so a little wriggle out from the bridge. And then I'm going to draw the right knee in towards the chest and take the hands around the back of the thigh and slowly extend that leg towards the sky above the hip. Now I'm spreading the toes out. I'm also conscious that my foot is following the line of the mat rather than rolling out to the side. So if your foot and your leg rolls out a little bit, you're going to have to internally rotate the thigh. I'm actually pressing the thigh into the hands so I can feel the stretch around the shoulders and across the front of the chest as well. As well as pressing the heel towards the sky, I'm trying to draw the hip down towards the floor, all at the same time. I'll be able to see it, but there's a little bit of a tremble in the leg going on. I'm going to let that foot come back down to the floor. And take the other leg up. Okay, I'll let that foot come down. I'll bring in both knees in towards the chest and then letting the knees go wide and coming into happy baby. The hands come onto the inside of the thighs. The hands roll over the top of the shins. Chin comes in towards the chest so I can see what I'm doing. So wrap my hands, get a good connection around to that little toe side. And then being aware of where the knees are, I draw the heels above. So the knees are as wide apart as the heels are as wide apart as the knees. Try and press the tailbone down to the floor and also the shoulder blades. Even though I'm using the block under the back of the head. And take a little breath from here and just wiggle the fingers around so that I can take hold of the big toe joint with the index finger and middle finger. And then slowly and progressively start to press the heels out to the side and let the back of the legs open out. Still trying to draw the spine to the floor. You might get a little bit of a rock on. Breathe. Pressing out through the heels to progressively straighter legs. And then bring the heels back in. Pull the feet to the floor. Going to roll onto my right side. Use the hands to press, to lift up. Take a little breath here and just draw the flesh out gently on those sitting bones. Put hands around the back of the thighs as I lean back and move into my boat pose. So squeezing the thighs together, going to lengthen the legs out. I'm going to keep the hands today underneath the back of the thighs, but if you wish to take it further, you can. I will warn you that we're going to move from this into a further version of this. So you might want to conserve your energies. You know how much energy you've got. I know mine's a little low today, so I'm going to be a bit more pragmatic with my practice. Getting used to the idea of balancing here. Drawing the belly in and rolling the shoulders back. Then I'm going to let the feet come to the floor. I'm going to draw the knees wide, bring the soles of the feet together. Take the two fingers again around the index finger, middle finger around the big toe. Allow myself to walk back a little bit. And then see if I can take a wide-legged, seated version. Draw the spine up. Press out through the heels. Bring ourselves back down. I'm going to come back onto that block. Allow the soles of the feet to come together, knees out wide. There's a good distance here, so this is more of a sort of a diamond shape. Wriggle onto the front sitting bones. Allow ourselves to slowly come forwards. And then we can use the hands to press down into the floor. Allow ourselves to just move that little bit further forward. So I'm now off of the block again. Sitting up tall, we're going to take the legs out wide, toes to the sky. Roll onto the front edge of the sitting bones. Allow ourselves to fall forwards. You can either take the hands directly to the floor, or you can take the hands out towards the toes. Some people like to hold on to the inside of the arch of the foot. Some people around the outside. It's your choice. But rather than pulling yourself down, Draw yourself towards the front of the mat. Press the back of the thighs, the calves, and the heels lightly into the floor. Draw the belly in. And then we can release from there. Bring ourselves back. Use the hands. Bring those legs back in. Going to move the block all the way to the back of the mat. And enjoy a few minutes of Shavasana. Just taking the spine down gently, palms out to the side, heels to the corner edges of the mat. And legs roll out a little bit. And then just allowing the whole of the sort of pelvis, lower spine, the back of the legs, the thighs to release and settle back down. And wriggle the shoulders underneath as well. They've had an interesting time this morning as well. Just soften the jaw. And listening to your breath slowing down in your heart as well. And letting some of the heat out of the body. On that topic, if your room is a little bit colder, you need to put some extra layers on, please do. We'll begin to wiggle those fingers and toes. Allow the wrists and the ankles to join in as well. Deeper breath. Enjoy that stretch out. Slide the heels along the ground to bring your feet back in towards you. And draw the knees into a soft, gentle hug. Whatever sort feels good. And then we'll roll gently onto our right side, keeping the knees in towards the body, turning the chest towards the ground. Pressing the hands into the floor on that exhale, and just smoothly riding back up into a seated posture of choice. Sitting tall, and the hands come towards the heart. Right, so to take a deeper breath as you close your eyes. Begin to exhale slowly, letting the chin drop, drawing the belly to the spine. Allow that natural bow to form, sealing your practice. On the inhale of your breath, let it build your spine for you. So the head lifts naturally, the eyes open. Namaste. Thank you for joining me this morning. Hope you enjoyed, and see you on the mat again soon.